Welcome to the Flower Prophecies, a podcast exploring all things flower essences and remedies and flower therapy, and how this vibrational plant medicine has the potential to heal and shift our individual and collective health and consciousness. We'll be diving deep into the specifics of individual essences, nature's energetics, emotional healing and growth, as well as hearing client case studies, hosting special guests and professionals, and I'll be sharing my own personal explorations and philosophies channeled straight from the flowers. Through my own unearthing, I have discovered what I believe to be the most profound teaching of the flowers, and I now wish to share with you the practice of alchemizing fear into beauty. Welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. Thank you to everyone who has been listening in. If you have, I would love it if you could share any feedback, leave your comments, rate and subscribe on the channel you are listening or watching on. Today on the podcast, I have a client of mine, and I am super excited to chat to her about her experiences with working with myself and the flowers. So we have been working together over the past 9 or so months, and it has been an absolute pleasure to witness and support her through navigating this journey of integrating plant medicine into her life for deep healing and transformation. Eva Cangarova is a holistic wellness mentor, owner of Zalah Wellness, formerly known as Zalah Crystals, which was a sustainable crystal retailer that truly offered the most divine and special crystals. So she has just recently transitioned into offering wellness mentoring using all the learnings she has acquired working in that realm. She offers this to her clients through the lens of crystal healing, EFT tapping, Ayurvedic elements, and cyclical living and more. Eva is joining us today from Egypt, and I'm so excited to welcome you on the podcast, Eva. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Abby. I appreciate you having me so much.
Oh, amazing. And if everyone couldn't tell, I was just practicing how to say her last name before and I didn't quite nail it. But I had to give it a go. So, Eva, let's start somewhere a little bit unique today. Tell me, how different has your experience with flower essences been while we've been working with them to what you may have originally expected would unfold?
I guess my perception of the flower essences has always been that they are a very gentle and subtle medicine. But I didn't expect the subtleties to be actually so strong and to push me into my truth in such a strong way. And I guess that has mostly happened through the fact that when I started working with you, you have written me a card of beautiful affirmations that I was reading out to myself every morning and every night when I was on the remedy. And it was through the power of the affirmations that I have realized where exactly am I not quite sitting in my truth in that time and space. And what I loved about it is that it allowed me to actually really tune into my body and understand the calls and the cues that come from within. Because every time I'd read a certain affirmation and my body didn't quite match the energy that I was, stating through that sentence, it would give me an immediate response. And as per human design, I also have a sacral authority. And so what that means is that when I make a statement or I'm being asked a question, the response comes for me straight away. So I don't really have to sit and think about it, but my body just tells me immediately. And this was exactly the case with the flower remedy. And there were some major things in my life that I was working towards in terms of achieving. But every time I read that particular sentence that was on the card, I knew that there are things that aren't quite allowing me to get to the point where I want to be. And that was actually the breaking point for me to know that, oh shit, I think that I've got some changes to make. And there were huge changes that I needed to make, and they were very confronting, which is also partially the reason for why I was in denial of them for so long. So in a sense, the first flower remedy that we did together was the one that actually really shifted my path, drastically. because I could no longer hide from the truth that was already inside of me. It was quite different to what I was expecting. I was going for like a gentle addition to my morning practice. And then a few months down the track, I'm living in a different country, continent, doing completely different things. And it's quite crazy in a sense.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I've told you this before while we've been working together, but I love how much integrity you have in following your truth and actually, aligning yourself where you can see that what you're doing isn't the way forward. So it's beautiful to watch it unfold and to really watch you, stay true to that. So yeah, thank you for sharing. So we have worked with 3 remedies over the last year. Could you share how you felt the overall experience has been to work with the remedies consecutively, one after the other? And did you find a benefit in doing this?
Yeah, I would say that my experience with having the 3 different ones, one after another, is that I felt that they actually all work together. So they're not necessarily separate, but I always felt like they just merged from one to another. And even towards the end of the first one, I still felt that maybe there are some things that I needed to integrate, maybe not, but the second one would usually complement the first one, and the third one would complement the second one. So what I really appreciated the most is having the space and opportunity to talk to you about it and unpack everything that I experienced, because my previous experience with the remedies was that I didn't get any kind of personal support. It was just a product off the shelf, which was still very beautiful, but having that personal conversation with you and being able to integrate together with you has given me a lot more substance to work with. And I definitely felt, a lot more supported with that. And each remedy for me had a very different energy too. And the interesting part was that they all came to me at the perfect time. Even if I wasn't aware of certain things, or I was going into our session with the intention of something, what I got out of it was actually something else, which was more important than the thing that I initially wanted, in order for me to exactly get to where I want to be again. So I find it very fascinating. It's very profound the way that it works.
Yeah, it is. And I speak about this a lot, is how it's almost like the remedies and the flowers themselves are divinely orchestrating how it all unfolds. And, some of the things that it feels like have been in play for months, sometimes even years, unfolded exactly the right moments with the remedies. So it's just one of those things that you can't quite put into words how magic it is, basically,
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the flowers, they just have their own kingdom. It's like a whole flower kingdom. They've got their own communication and, their own style in which they showed us the truth.
I agree. That's beautiful. So I'd love to hear from you what has been some of the most profound shifts in yourself that you have experienced from this medicine.
Well, the first thing that was quite life-changing and transformative was me actually letting go of a relationship that has been very, very precious to me for 7 years of my life. And it was something that I guess I had a lot of resistance towards the idea. And it was through the first remedy that I actually experienced the call to go ahead and make some adjustments in my life. And it was very hard, actually, because obviously when we are living a certain way for an X amount of time, there is a lot of shadows that come up with making the change forward or moving forward in a completely different way. So that in itself is a huge change, because I personally believe that our primary relationship is something that affects everything else in our life, because this is the person that is sort of like an extension of who we are. We're one unit with that person. And if for any reasons those two energies don't feel aligned any longer, it is going to affect both parties in their life. And so this was actually the first time that I experienced something really, really difficult with a remedy. But upon further introspection and kind of looking back at the situation from why everything happened the way that it has, it just made a perfect sense for what is it that I need. And for me personally, it was a lot about working with the polarity of the masculine and the feminine. So I guess through the remedy, I was able to really tune into where I see myself within the spectrum of these two polarities. And how do I want to organize my life externally so that it can actually support my internal world? And it was a lot about actually coming back home to myself and honoring the needs that I have, honoring what is it that I'm looking for. Some of my biggest challenges in life have always been around this type of polarity thing, because growing up, I was, I guess, just so immersed in my masculine energy, being very hyper independent. And oftentimes I felt exhausted from this type of living, because I don't believe that this is the natural state for women to be in, especially. So the set of the three remedies that I've had has not only allowed me to see the elements of my life where this polarity isn't quite exactly as I feel like I would like to be. And also, once I kind of worked through that, I was able to go a lot more in depth in terms of my own self and understanding my inner landscape. So from shifting relationships, shifting environment, shifting polarities, into exploring so deeply about my own intimate relationship to myself and how I relate to others, so that I am able to show up as a better human for whoever enters my life following that. So it was quite a big journey there. All of these topics are like pretty massive, and at times it was really tough. And because I was talking to you throughout the process, and how much challenges I've gone through at the same time with actually listening to what my intuition is telling me, and listening to that sacral authority that's telling me that this is where I need to go. So thank you for all your support during that time and holding space for me, because they were probably some of the biggest shifts in life that I've ever experienced.
Well, thank you for sharing it with me and being vulnerable enough to put yourself out there and do it for yourself as well. So thank you. And yeah, the thing with the flowers is these aspects of ourselves, and the aspects that we're trying to sort of bring to fruition and to sort of align and balance. We're already always like on our way there, but the flowers come in and they remove everything that's in the way, right, of us actually being able to do that. So it's like we know deep down what is the next step for us, what is aligned with us, what isn't aligned with us. But the way the flowers work is that they move the blocks in the way of us, actually moving towards those truths. And it can be challenging. It can be really challenging, because that's when we actually have to face them, and that's why we're so resistant to facing them in the beginning. But so it can be really difficult working with this medicine. And although it is a somewhat gentle medicine, it can do the really deep work, and that's never going to be sort of smooth sailing, So but it's just beautiful to watch someone do it with so much, like I said before, with so much integrity. So thank you for sharing that. And I actually love reflecting on that, how that initial sort of polarity between the masculine and feminine that you were addressing flowed through to the remedies. And the remedies we made after that were quite feminine, invoking, and sort of embracing that aspect of self. So that's beautiful to reflect on as well, and just how that's sort of unfolded.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely felt like the more we moved forward, the more it was about the feminine energy actually, and all of the things that it comes with.
Mm,
And I guess for me, it was, yeah, just the circumstances that I was in that weren't fully allowing me to do that.
mm,
So I was very grateful for having had that experience with the remedy. It's
mm.
amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So I'd love for you to share the practices that you yourself incorporate alongside the remedies. So the thing that I love about the remedies is that we can use them alongside other complementary practices to enhance the potential and amplify what they're actually doing for us. And I would love to know how you personally implement, everything you do alongside them.
Well, one thing that I always say when it comes to the remedies is because the flowers themselves are so subtle and they are so gentle with the way that they work with us. I feel that it's a very, very important thing to have a clean vessel.
Mm,
And so what that means is basically that our mind is clear, our ability to tune inwards and listen to what the body is telling us is there. And I feel that only then we can actually really tune into the remedies themselves and understand what they're here to say. Because if somebody is completely disconnected from their internal landscape, they may not actually find the remedy to do much for them. And I guess, they may feel like it's just too weak, so
mm,
called.
yeah.
So in order to really feel the potency, we need to kind of let go of a lot of noises and a lot of I don't know what the right word, like any impurities,
Mm,
from the
yeah,
body.
love that.
So the practices that I engaged in during the time of me taking the remedy is just making sure that I'm feeling pure. And a lot of the things that I teach in the crystalline alignment, which is the offering of Zalah, which I do the mentorship for, is all about aligning the external with the internal. So the practices that I would like to do are just things that make sure that I am feeling clear and clean in my body. So obviously adjusting the things that I consume. And I'm not just talking about the food, but I'm talking about all the external factors that are, on the outside. Learning how to pause for a moment and actually listen. So this would usually be through my meditation practice. A lot of journaling happens when I'm on the remedy because things pop up, and I love journaling. For me, that's just my main outlet of having a clear mind and being able to, I guess, categorize. Like I'm sometimes a little bit analytical too, so I can go in depth of a lot of things that I'm experiencing. And through the remedy, there was a lot of things that it was bringing up, and then I had to kind of really sit with myself and journal a lot about what is it that I'm feeling. As well as that, I always loved working with crystals on the side,
Mm,
and that would be through ritual practices, meditation again, and things where, because I feel like the crystals and the flowers, they're kind of in a very similar sphere
yeah,
of healing, and
absolutely.
so is plant too. So I guess like they all work hand in hand with everything.
Yeah.
And even just moving the body,
Mm,
they're actually very simple things. But when we are on a remedy and we want to feel like we are more tuned in, I think what's really important is that we are moving the old energy out. Just like the remedy, the flowers themselves are moving the old stagnancy out of our body. It has to physically exit somehow. So it's either we sweat a lot doing saunas or sweating, in a gym, in a yoga session, whatever helps us to actually get the toxins out and the old energy out. And I think all of these practices basically complement being on the remedy and just making sure that we're feeling light.
yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And yeah, it's really so important. And we will feel these purges when we're on the remedy. But if we can enhance the practices we're doing, it makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker as well to sort of really move that. But I just want to touch as well on like the importance of journaling and while you were taking flower essences and remedies, because like you've mentioned a few times, when we look back in retrospect, there's so many profound unfoldments that we haven't even been aware of or connected to one another or whatever it may be, that really sort of make up these huge pieces of the overall bigger picture. And so journaling about them, whether it's just taking notes or whether it's sitting down and having a proper journaling practice, is such a crucial piece to working with the flower remedies. And I do try to encourage everyone to use that practice alongside them, because I think if there's one at all, that would be the key practice. I love how much you journal. It's amazing.
I've got a whole library happening there, because something that I do, that I take all of my journals and I flip them to the side, like the side corner of it. And I even write the month and the year, so that when I go back into my archives, I can actually find what was happening at this time 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit, but I actually really enjoy it, and it definitely works for me.
But it's amazing, because the number of times you actually pulled your journals out when we were in our sessions to actually reference back to certain days. And I was like, whoa.
That's exactly what I'm doing, that, because it actually makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's I'm not quite at that level, but hopefully one day.
I feel like I should start a journal brand. If there's anyone out there, it's probably going to be me, because the amount of journals that I go through is a lot.
Amazing. I love it. You'll be able to write a good biography one day.
Oh, yeah. Same. If I ever decide to go ahead with that idea, I have a lot of material to work with.
Amazing. So good. So how did you find, you've already sort of touched on this a bit, but the flowers sort of work in such a unique way for every individual. So I'd love if you could sort of touch on how you found they unfolded for you in particular, if there was any sort of, I guess, similarities between when you first started taking each essence and how it sort of began working, or just a little bit about your own experience with it.
Well, for me, the moment when I come to wherever the remedy is sitting, usually it was sitting on my bedside table. So I would just do it in the morning in the bedroom and before I go to sleep. Currently, it's actually sitting in my bathroom, because that's when I get ready for the day. And so I have it always accessible where I feel like it just flows the best.
Yeah.
The moment that I actually drop the 7 drops under my tongue, now, I used to be very resistant to the whole brandy thing. I was so particular about it at the start, but I think something has shifted in me during these last 9 months. Because somehow I actually really, really enjoy the feeling of the brandy.
Okay. I love that.
I actually had moments when I took the drops, and the second that the essence has merged with my mouth, it's like there's this thing like feathers has just brushed over my body. And something happens in there. It's very hard to articulate it in words, but I can actually feel an immediate shift in my energy. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens at certain points, when I feel more connected to the remedy itself. And even when I read the affirmations on the cards, I think what's really important for me is reading them very slowly and truly, truly connecting with what I'm saying. Because, you have those moments when you just read the affirmations, you just get on with the day. And yes, it's probably working on a subtle level, but it is in those moments when I'm extremely present with taking the remedy and saying the affirmations out loud. And this is the time when I actually observe in detail how my body responds to every single thing that I just said.
Yes.
And if my body responds like, yeah, you're living that, you have embodied these things, that's how I usually know that it's time to move forward to the next remedy. But if there are some things when I read it out loud and I'm very present with what I'm saying and my body just cringes inside, it's like, Eva, there parts of you that are still not fully believing what you're saying right now. So the affirmation isn't 100% truth for yourself because there are things in your life that don't match the statement. And this is exactly the time and space when I'd be like, okay, so what does one do with that? Where do we go from here? And I feel like this is a very individual journey for everyone, and people may experience these cues in many different forms. But I think what's really important here is actually being true to ourselves, like being really honest with ourselves, because we can lie to other people, but we can never lie to ourselves. We can continue repeating the same story out loud to somebody that we're chatting with and trying to convince ourselves of a certain statement. But I think deep down, we always know what the real truth is. And this is exactly those moments of spending the intimate time and the intimate connection with the remedy offers to us. And that's how we can really, really go in depth about what is it that we want. And are we taking the inspired action to be where we want? Because we can ask for many things, but if we don't actually take the step forward, we won't be able to get what we're looking for.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And it's so true, the intention behind the affirmation. It's such an important part of it as well. Because, I've had months where I make a remedy up and I don't write an affirmation, and it is a completely different experience, like a completely different experience. But then, when I do use the affirmations, it's like I see myself, for me personally, I see myself going through my day and I'll have these experiences where I am speaking about something and the words of the affirmation come out, and that's where I see that, okay, I'm now like in alignment here because I'm like actually using these words in the situation that I'm in, and it feels like it's really kind of coherent and all come together. So they do, unfold so individually, but I love the emphasis on the affirmation. I think that's really crucial to every sort of journey with them.
And I also feel that it is going to be the actual life experience that follows or that happens simultaneously as us taking the remedy that also reveals how far we've come. Because if I'm experiencing or if I'm repeating certain affirmations, it is only when I'm in that actual life experience where I needed that statement that I know, have I actually embodied? Have I not embodied? So I guess, sitting in a cave, meditating all day with this remedy wouldn't necessarily do so much progress as being out and about in a real life. And this is, I think, the most important part of any kind of work that I talk about, bridging the spiritual and the material. So the work that we do with the remedy energetically is very spiritual. And then we're out in a real world, the material world, where it's the time to bring the two together. And I think this is a very good indicator. It's like the KPI. How well.
I love it. So good. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's so good. I see that a lot of people use flower essences and they work on that spiritual level and they remove the energy. But unless we're intentionally going in and rewriting the stories that was created from that remedy and the behaviors and the patterns that were the outcome and the manifestation from that energy, then, we're just going to sort of re-implement them back into our lives. And that energy is going to build again. So it's really so important for sure. So, I mean, we've already touched on this. So if you don't have anything else to mention about this, that's fine. But you have navigated a lot of big shifts over the last year, including a move to Egypt, like you say. And I just wanted to know, did you feel while you're using the flower essences through these transitional phases, did you feel like they were sort of supporting you in those transitions? So I know that it definitely sort of encouraged you to make those big moves, and those difficult moves. But do you feel as though they were supporting you when you went and actually took the inspired action?
Well, the idea of moving to Egypt for me came extremely unexpectedly. So it isn't anything that I was necessarily preparing myself for or calling in. This was really not on my radar in any way. After living here for 6 years, before coming to Australia, I never really thought that I would ever return back in the same way that I have. And so when I was traveling last summer, the European summer, so it was August and September in 2023, I actually left the remedy at home. And the funny thing is that I had a few doses left for myself when I come back. And for some reason, I didn't want to bring it with me because I was like, no, I only have a very little amount left. I somehow have a feeling I might actually need it when I come back. So I'm just going to leave it here. And then I went off traveling, made massive decisions to break off my engagement and move forward in a very different way. It was very tough, very, very tough. But the moment that I came to Australia, I really felt into a lot of those emotions that were coming up for me and the things that I needed to purge out from my body to process everything that I have just made a decision about. And I was so grateful for having those few doses left because it felt like that I needed to go overseas and be in that real life experience to see how far I've integrated that remedy. And then when I came back home, I was like, wow, welcome back. All right, I'm back to my bottle. And then I had those drops and I was like, everything happens for a reason. It's just, I had this big epiphany amongst the whole experience that, yes, it was very challenging and it was really tough to go through, but I somehow knew exactly that I'm on the right path. And when I read those affirmations 2 months later, after having a 2-month break, even if it was just a few drops that like reintegrated that wisdom that I was working on upon me returning back to Australia, I definitely felt that everything happened for a reason. And sometimes there would be moments when I don't feel so drawn to taking the remedy. So it would give me like a week break or a 2-week break, or whatever, few days. And I almost feel that it's in this space that something is meant to happen to complement the thing. So this just shows me the divine alignment of all and the synchronicities and the connections of everything that we experience in life. And it kind of makes me feel that life is so trippy. Life is so trippy because we don't really ever know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
I guess it comes down to personal beliefs, about the divine, about religion, about God. But it somehow just makes me really believe that everything has a timeline. And sometimes the timeline can be also very distorted. So now we're getting very esoteric here.
I love it. But yeah.
So your question about the
support.
support.
Definitely. And it's so, when you're working with the flowers, it's so important to listen to those cues, like you say, of when you're needing a break from the remedy, because it is all down to this divine orchestration. And it's like we're little puppets, it's all been planned out for us,
It's an internal dilemma about whether everything that we're living out in our life is pre-planned and predestined versus how much of a free will and power we actually have in life.
Yeah.
And that's a concept I don't have any answers for, even though
that's it.
I've been for so long.
Yeah, we could talk about that for a while, but I don't know if we'd get anywhere.
No, actually know anything.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. It's the mystery of life. And I think the human ego and, a lot of the people in the spiritual field, they like I've gone through this phase myself when I thought that I know the best because I've done ABC work on myself.
Mm.
But in the end of the days, it is the mystery of life and we know nothing. So I'm just learning to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. And that's it. The more control we release of trying to work it all out and figure it all out, the easier it becomes because we just begin to flow with it, right? Yeah, definitely. Like the resistance that we feel when we're think that we do, control the outcome and we do sort of I guess have this grasp on where we want to go and how we want it to plan out. When we let go of that, it just sort of all unfolds for us. So it's just that real universal trust in the process, which is something that we also work with the remedies, and something that I work with most of my clients as well, because it's one of the biggest challenges is just handing it all over to the universe and going, okay, then let's do it.
Yeah, I actually heard a statement once. It was a quote. The more you release control, the more you have it.
Yes.
And it's a very powerful one that keeps sticking around a lot. And whenever I experience resistance towards something in my life, I just ask myself, how can I let go of control and still be very intentional? Letting go of control doesn't mean that I'm like giving up on life, but it just not gripping so hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a tendency to grip and like wanting to feel that I'm the creator of everything. But I like to think I'm a co-creator because there's also divine power that flows within all of us. And in the end of the days, our body is just a vessel. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, when you were working with the flowers, if there was certain flowers within your remedies that you connected to more than others, or how that sort of played out for you.
I remember at the time of our sessions, I used to love seeing the cards that you picked with the flowers because I was just so curious in terms of like, what has this situation brought for me? And the selection of the flowers was always so accurate, so accurate. And I'm somebody that connects with flowers, period. I would just go on a morning walk and stop by a whole bunch of houses with random flowers in it and have a conversation and like secretly hope that no one's watching me right now. It's just my little intimate moments with the flowers.
Yeah.
But they were definitely flowers that I have seen in your spread when you were designing the remedy for me, that I felt like, yeah, this feels exactly right in my body right now. At the time I was actually taking the remedies, I didn't necessarily feel that I'm paying too much attention to what flowers are in it. I think it was mostly during the initial session that we had and reading the meanings of all the flowers. It was just such an aha moment to see that when we actually let go of that control and allow somebody else to channel the things for us, whatever is meant to be there will be there. And I don't have to interfere in any way. It's like I have the full trust towards you that whatever you're choosing is the right thing. And yeah, it just works. It worked. So yeah, that's on the connection with the flowers themselves.
Beautiful. And I remember you being very drawn to specific flowers, and even this is something that happens with myself and also with many others, is that there was, I think, one particular flower that had actually been presenting for you in your life. I think you were saying there's a bush of it around the corner.
Yeah, I think it was okay, so there was a few. I think it was iris. The iris flower for me is like, I actually have a tattoo of it on my shoulder, so I feel extremely connected to it. And it is also the bridge between the earth and the heavens. So I feel like it symbolically, it goes really well with the concept that I teach about the bridging of the material and the spiritual. But there was a purple wisteria that I remember getting in the deck. And the funny thing is that prior to getting that, I was walking past in one of them in the street, and I constantly kept looking at it. And I had no idea why, or it's just something that used to really catch my attention. And it wasn't until we actually done the reading together when I really understood that, oh, this is obviously meant to deliver a message for me now.
I love it. It's so funny because it happens so much, where something is like on the street, like, or literally in your backyard even, and it's like catching your eye constantly, and like you're always being drawn to it. And then, working with the flowers, you realize that's why, because, there's definitely a message there, and I've got something that it can help me with, so it's so beautiful. Trees and plants and flowers, they know it all. They're there for us. Just go have a conversation, like you say.
You know what? And the fascinating thing is that when we actually pay attention to our surroundings, where we're at, we notice things. And I could be in the same place 1 year from now, and I'm going to notice completely different things.
Yeah.
And especially with the like the natural world, the plants, the trees, the flowers, and the crystals, something that really, really fascinates me. And I guess a lot of people who are very ego driven and very mind oriented may not even get this concept, because like I said, this is getting a bit esoteric. But every single thing that is surrounding us, every living thing, including the plants and the trees and the crystals and the flowers, they have their own ways of communicating. And they have their own frequency. And each frequency is going to trigger different parts of our being. So when we pay attention to what's surrounding us, we then realize that, wow, this world is so much beyond what we can see. And that is the best thing. And this is something that I really learned from working with crystals for so many years, that there are so many things that are unseen, which will not make sense to the human mind, which will not be able to be articulated through words, but on an energetic and feeling level, they will make sense because they're felt. They're not seen. They're not heard. They're felt inside of us. So I think for those that have this ability to kind of like tune into those unseen, the mystical realms, they will honestly really enjoy working with something like a flower essence, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, very, very beautifully said. And it's the truth, we are all energy and we all have frequency. And I used to, I guess, see myself as, like, I've always been a very emotional person, and I used to call myself a feeler, I guess. And I think, that's why I'm so drawn to this medicine as well, is because I feel it all so deeply. But the thing is, like you say, is everything is energy, and we're all feeling everything, and not everything can be articulated, and not everything can be seen or picked apart with the mind. So that's why medicine like this is so important, because it brings us into our feeling bodies. It brings us into our energy and learning how to communicate with different species that are not necessarily human, So it's just why this medicine is just so needed as well, because we can't just make sense of life with the mind. There's so much more to it than that. Beautiful. So you also touched on this a little bit, but if you have anything to add on, how important did you find it to be using the essences intentionally?
Yeah, I feel like the power of intention is huge. And I often refer back to it even when designing rituals with people and daily habits that help them support where they're going. The difference between our intention is that when we are truly intentional about something, I feel that it actually really works. A good example for that would be when somebody is creating a meditation practice in the morning and they are doing it because they have to, not because they want to, I feel like the result of that is going to be very different. It's like when we are doing something from a place of fear or a place of resentment or all of these like lower vibrational frequencies, I think the outcome turns out to be completely different. But when we do something with in the name of love and actually for the purpose of love, it is so much more powerful because it brings our frequency a lot higher.
Mm.
So same with the flower essences. When we truly set the intention, we are being reminded of that intention every single time we take the remedy, as opposed to just taking the remedy. Because I feel that where we direct the energy, where thought goes, I think there was a saying where attention goes, energy flows, something along those lines. And this is just exactly describing the power of intention.
Yeah.
When we focus on something, each time we take the remedy, it just helps us to come back to that intention. And we're being reminded of just aligning back on the right track to be with this intention that we want. Because if we didn't have the intention, then it's like, what's the point of taking this remedy now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, like those affirmations on the intention card, I think make a huge difference.
Beautiful. Thank you. So this is the last question I have for you today. So did you find the flower therapy and guidance sessions that we had together shape your experience in any way or provided you with a foundation for each remedy's journey?
Well, the answer is straight up yes. Absolutely. But I feel like it wasn't necessarily just the remedy. It was you as a person, because you are such a beautiful person and you're so intuitive and so emotionally aware and intelligent that I think it's your presence that makes a huge difference in my journey, as well as the remedy itself. Because if I didn't have the support from you, and if I didn't feel that I can actually talk to a human, I mean, talk hours a lot, but sometimes it's really nice to bring it back to the human level of conversation. So I'm like, okay, so these are my material troubles right now. How can I fix them? What does your human mind have to say about this?
Love it.
So I definitely felt that having that opportunity to talk to you and let you know what I'm experiencing, let you know also where I'm experiencing resistance too, because that's a very important part of it all. Anyone that's starting with the remedy is going to at some point experience some kind of resistance, because that's just the natural process and element of this journey. So having that opportunity to talk to you was huge, because that is what made me feel very safe and supported. And you reminding me that whatever I'm experiencing is a part of the process. And I guess being on a remedy as well gives me a sense of hope. It gives me a sense of a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, when things get really challenging in life, I think that it's very important that we find these little things, you know, like somebody likes to hold a crystal when they're feeling anxious or nervous. And I think it's the same with the remedy. You know, there is no harm in having some little extra help from each side if it means that it makes our experience better or easier to navigate or feeling more supported. I don't see why I would be resistant to any kind of help in those regards, you know? Yeah. So personally, I found it to be very powerful, really, really eye-opening, and it was also quite gentle at the same time. Like it isn't, you know, like when you take a cup of coffee and you have this like massive rush of energy all of a sudden. It's just working very gently. So even though some of these steps that I had to take were massive and they were very hard, I still felt that somehow I've got this. It's all groovy. So the remedy was a lovely addition to that. And plus the bottles look beautiful. The taste is amazing. The brandy that I was my best friend. Yeah, I'm like, have I just put a shot of something? Like, When I wake up, I'm like, woohoo, time to rock and roll.
Love it. Love it. You get very accustomed to the taste, don't you?
Oh yeah. It's flavor, like it's just a beautiful feeling to have something like that. And yeah, I have like a nice little corner for it with, a piece of shell, and my gold is sitting there, and it's like a whole thing happening. So I really enjoy having that.
Love it. Oh, so beautiful. And thank you for those kind words. I'm so grateful to be working with you and witnessing it all. And yeah, thank you for sharing it with me. So very, very grateful for that. Beautiful.
And I'm so excited and very, very happy to weave our work together to the Zalah community, because I feel like if anything that the Zalah community loves and is all about is all of these alternatives that can actually really help us attune to our true selves. So I always love connecting together with people like yourself, and you have had such a significant impact in my life. So I thank you so much for that and inviting me to do this work with you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Is there anything else you would love to add, or no pressure if there isn't, but is there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about?
No, I think that if you actually start paying attention to what the flowers look like, they are so cute. So beautiful. Like, I don't know for anyone that's listening, if they've ever like had a moment of connecting with a flower deeply, 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 like staring at it and seeing all the little intricacies and the colors and the little fluff that's just happening. Like, the flowers are so divine and they are so delicate. And I think like for women especially, there is a big connection also between our yoni and the flower, which is the seat of the power, the seat of the wisdom. And when we observe the flower unfold and open up, it's like when the bee comes to the flower and it's just like playing and tickling, and then the bee gets the pollen, the flower is like slowly opening up. And I think that's a very beautiful symbolism to how we are as humans, and how we are, especially as women, in our feminine essence, that when we are feeling safe, we open up and we give this nourishment to the world to reproduce, which is the creative energy. So personally, flowers for me are a love affair, and I would highly encourage anyone that has never had this moment of connection with a certain flower to actually go for a walk, observe the flowers, and see what they feel drawn to, because they are just divine. They're beautiful.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing all about your journey with the flowers and myself and your life. Like I said, I just adore how passionately you implement all of your learnings and teachings. So thank you. Thank you. It's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And if my audience would like to find you anywhere, where can they do so?
They can connect with me through Instagram. My personal Instagram, where I talk a lot about alignment and rituals, is at Eva Cangarova, Cangarova. And it is at Zalah Wellness, or www.zalahwellness.com. They can read a blog about things that I was talking about and just connect a little bit more with the wisdom of crystals and
amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening in again. I'm sure you love this one. This was such a beautiful conversation and I've been looking forward to it for so long. And if you would like to find anything more about my own offerings, you can do so at hekahealing.com.au or on Instagram at Heka Healing Flower Therapy, and the podcast at The Flower Prophecies on Instagram. And yeah, I look forward to seeing and talking to you all next week. Thank you. Thank you.